My best friend asked me to be her maid of honor, but she had no idea I'd been sleeping with her fiancé for 2 years. Sarah squeezed my hands in her living room, eyes bright with wedding fever and champagne. Emma, I can't imagine anyone else standing beside me on the biggest day of my life, she gushed, her engagement ring catching the afternoon light. Behind her, professional engagement photos covered every surface, her radiant smile next to Marcus's practiced grin, both of them looking like the perfect couple everyone believed them to be. I forced enthusiasm into my voice, hoping the guilt wasn't written across my face. Of course. I'm so honored you asked. The irony wasn't lost on me. Neither was the sick twist in my stomach. It started innocently enough, the way these things always do. 2 years ago, Marcus and I were paired together for Sarah's surprise birthday planning committee. She'd always been the type to love elaborate celebrations, and organizing a party for someone that detail-oriented required military precision. Late nights coordinating vendors and managing guest lists turned into lingering conversations over coffee that stretched well past midnight. That's when Marcus first confessed he felt trapped. Said Sarah had rushed their relationship, pushed for the engagement before he was ready, that he wasn't sure about marriage, but couldn't disappoint her without looking like the bad guy. She's already planning our whole future, he'd said, running stressed fingers through his dark hair. Wedding venues, honeymoon destinations, how many kids we'll have and when. I never agreed to any of it, but somehow I'm locked into this timeline I didn't create. I should have shut it down right then. Should have told him to talk to Sarah about his concerns or break up with her if he wasn't committed. Instead, I offered comfort. I listened. I sympathized with his position while completely ignoring Sarah's. One thing led to another in his apartment while Sarah worked a double shift at the hospital, saving lives while I destroyed her future. We told ourselves it was just stress relief, a one-time mistake born of too much wine and emotional vulnerability. 2 years later, we were still making that same mistake twice a week, sometimes 3, when Sarah's schedule was particularly demanding. The wedding planning began immediately after Sarah's birthday party. She dragged me to venue tours, cake tastings, dress fittings, floral consultations. Each appointment was pure torture, watching her plan what she thought would be the perfect day while I carried the secret that would obliterate everything she was building. She'd get so excited about tiny details, the way the light would hit her dress during the ceremony, how the centerpieces would complement the bridesmaids' gowns, whether the band or DJ would create the right atmosphere for their first dance. She'd planned everything down to the color of the napkins, and every decision included a story about why it mattered to her and Marcus. He loves gardenias, she'd say, pointing to floral arrangements. His grandmother grew them. I want him to think of her when he sees them at our wedding. Meanwhile, Marcus would text me during these outings. Simple messages like, missing you, or can't wait to see you tonight, that I'd delete before Sarah could notice. The guilt was eating me alive, but I couldn't seem to stop. Neither could he. The sex was incredible, which made everything worse. There was an intensity born of secrecy, a desperate hunger that came from stolen moments and the constant threat of discovery. We'd meet at hotels across town, in his apartment when Sarah was working, occasionally at my place when we were certain she'd be busy for hours. But it wasn't just physical. Marcus would talk to me in ways he apparently didn't talk to Sarah, about his fears, his dreams, his frustrations with work and family pressure. He'd hold me afterward and tell me things he claimed he'd never told anyone. Part of me knew he was probably manipulating me, using intimacy to justify what we were doing, but I wanted so desperately to believe I meant something to him. 3 months before the wedding, Sarah confided her deepest fear over wine at our monthly girls' night. Sometimes I worry Marcus seems distant, she said, swirling her glass nervously. Like he's physically there, but his mind is somewhere else entirely. Do you think that's normal? My stomach clenched so hard I thought I might vomit right there on her coffee table. Pre-wedding jitters, I managed to say smoothly. Completely normal. Men process big life changes differently than we do. She nodded, visibly relieved by my false expertise. You're right. I'm probably overthinking everything. Thank God I have you to keep me grounded. If only she knew exactly where his mind wandered during those distant moments. If only she knew that while she worried about wedding details, he was texting another woman, me. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening last week. Sarah called me at home, sobbing so hysterically I could barely understand her words. I found something in Marcus's car, she choked out between gasping breaths. My blood turned to ice. My hands started shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. What did you find? I asked, though part of me already knew. A receipt from Victoria's Secret, for lingerie. Expensive stuff. In a size I've never worn in my life. The room started spinning. I remembered that shopping trip perfectly. Marcus buying me that black lace set I'd admired in the window. He'd been so eager to see me in it. Said it would drive him crazy thinking about me wearing it under my regular clothes. Maybe it's for you? I suggested weakly, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. A wedding night surprise? No, she whispered, and I could hear her moving around, probably pacing her apartment the way she did when anxious. I checked the date on the receipt. It's from 3 weeks ago, when I was visiting my sister in Portland for 2 weeks. He was supposed to be alone, working late every night. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. My confession balanced on the tip of my tongue, ready to spill out and end this nightmare once and for all. Then Sarah's voice changed, hardening in a way I'd never heard before. It was cold, calculating, nothing like the warm woman I'd known since college. I'm going to find out who she is, she said with frightening calm, and when I do, I'm going to destroy her life the same way she's destroyed mine. The line went dead before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone in horror. That night, Marcus called in a panic. She knows something, he said. She's been going through my things, asking weird questions. What if she finds out about us? We need to end this, I whispered. before it's too late. End what? The affair or the engagement? Before I could answer, he continued frantically. Emma, you don't understand what this will do to me. My business depends on contracts from her father's firm. If this comes out, I lose everything. The house we bought together, my reputation, my entire life is built around this relationship. His words stung more than I expected. Not once did he mention losing me or what we had together. I was just collateral damage in his real life with Sarah. Then maybe you should have thought about that before starting this, I said, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Don't act like this is all my fault, he shot back. You were just as willing. You could have said no at any time. So could you. And for the record, you're the one who was engaged. You're the one who made commitments to her. We hung up on each other, both angry and scared and completely out of options. 10 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I looked at the clock, 9:47 p.m. Nobody visited me that late without calling first. I crept to the front window and peered through the blinds. My heart stopped. Sarah was standing on my porch, illuminated by the light from my front door. But something was wrong with the scene. She wasn't crying or agitated like I'd expect from someone who just discovered their fiancé's betrayal. Instead, she stood perfectly still, her face eerily calm in the darkness. Almost predatory. She knew. I approached the door on trembling legs. Through the peephole, I could see Sarah's face clearly now. She was smiling, but it wasn't her usual warm expression. This smile was sharp, calculating. Emma, she called through the door, her voice perfectly normal, almost cheerful. I know you're home. Your car's in the driveway and I can see the lights on. We need to talk. I knew I was trapped. Refusing to let her in would only confirm her suspicions. I unlocked the door and opened it slowly, trying to keep my expression neutral. Hey, I said, stepping aside to let her in. Everything okay? You sounded upset on the phone earlier. Sarah walked past me into my living room, taking in the space like she was seeing it for the first time. She'd been here dozens of times before, but tonight she moved differently, more deliberately, like she was cataloging details. I've been thinking about our conversation, she said, settling onto my couch with that same unsettling smile, about the lingerie receipt and Marcus acting distant. I sat across from her in my armchair, maintaining as much distance as possible. Did you talk to him about it? Oh, yes. We had a very interesting conversation. She crossed her legs and leaned back, completely relaxed. He insists the lingerie was meant as a surprise for me. A very expensive surprise, apparently. La Perla. Do you know that brand, Emma? My mouth went dry. I think I've heard of it. It's quite luxurious. The set he bought costs more than most people spend on an entire wardrobe. Black lace. Very sexy. Very specific sizing. Her eyes never left my face. Size 34C. Which is interesting because I'm a 36B. The room felt like it was closing in around me. Sarah knew my bra size. We'd shopped together countless times. Shared dressing rooms. Borrowed each other's clothes in college. Maybe he guessed wrong? I suggested weakly. That's what I thought initially, Sarah said, her voice still maddeningly calm. Men are notoriously bad at guessing women's sizes. But then I got curious about the timing. Why would he buy me lingerie when I was out of town? Why not wait until I got back so we could enjoy it together? She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. So I started thinking about what Marcus was doing while I was in Portland. And then I remembered. You helped him with some work project that week. Something about client presentations. You spent quite a bit of time together, didn't you? My heart was hammering so hard I was sure she could hear it. We worked on a few proposals together. Nothing major. At his apartment? Sometimes. And his office. She nodded like she was processing this information. And you mentioned he seemed stressed about the wedding. It was nice of you to help him work through those feelings. The way she said it made my skin crawl. There was no accusation in her tone, nothing I could point to as evidence that she knew the truth. But somehow her calm politeness was more terrifying than any angry confrontation would have been. Sarah, what's this really about? I asked, trying to regain some control of the conversation. I told you, I'm trying to understand why my fiancé bought lingerie in another woman's size when I was out of town. She tilted her head slightly, studying my face. Unless you have some insight that might help me figure this out, this was it. My chance to confess, to end the charade before it got worse. The words were right there, begging to be spoken. Instead, I heard myself saying, maybe he was buying it for someone else to give to you? Like, maybe he asked his sister or a female friend to help him pick something out? It was a ridiculous explanation, and we both knew it, but Sarah just nodded thoughtfully. That's an interesting theory. Although it doesn't explain why he was so nervous when I asked about it, or why he couldn't seem to remember where he'd hidden this alleged surprise. She stood up suddenly, smoothing down her skirt. Well, I should let you get some sleep. I just wanted to run this by you. Get your perspective as someone who knows both of us so well. She headed toward the door, then paused and turned back. Oh, Emma? I'm hiring a private investigator tomorrow. Just to put my mind at ease, you understand? If Marcus is innocent, there's nothing to worry about. But if someone is lying to me, she shrugged, her smile turning genuinely cold for the first time. Well, I suppose we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. After she left, I immediately called Marcus back. He answered on the first ring. What did she want? He demanded. She knows, I said flatly. Maybe not the details yet, but she knows something is wrong. And Marcus? She's hiring a private investigator. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Marcus? I'm here. I'm just processing. Emma? If they start investigating, they're going to find everything. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, probably photos of us together. I know. We need to stay away from each other until this blows over. No contact, no meetings, nothing that could be misconstrued. And what if it doesn't blow over? What if she finds evidence? Then we deny everything. Say it's all circumstantial, that we were just working together and someone's jumping to conclusions. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marcus, you want to lie to her face even if she has proof? What choice do we have? His voice was getting desperate now. Emma, you don't understand what this will do to me. If this comes out, I lose everything. My business depends on contracts from Sarah's father's firm, my reputation in this town, the house we bought together. My entire life is built around this relationship. His words stung more than I expected. Not once did he mention losing me or what we had together. I was just collateral damage in his real life with Sarah. Then maybe you should have thought about that before starting this affair, I said, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Don't act like this is all my fault, he shot back. You were just as willing. You could have said no at any time. So could you. And for the record, you're the one who was engaged. You're the one who made commitments to her. You knew I was engaged when this started. Yes, and that makes me a terrible person. But it doesn't make you any less responsible for your choices. We hung up on each other, both angry and scared and completely out of options. The next few days passed in agonizing slow motion. Every phone call, every text message, every unexpected noise made me jump. I kept expecting Sarah to call with accusations or demand answers. Instead, I got normal texts about wedding planning, updates about the florist, and questions about the bachelorette party itinerary. The normalcy was somehow worse than confrontation would have been. It felt like she was playing with me, letting me squirm while she gathered evidence. On Thursday, she texted asking if I wanted to grab lunch on Saturday. Just the two of us, she said, to discuss some last-minute wedding details. I agreed because refusing would have been suspicious, but every instinct told me it was a trap. I barely slept Friday night. By Saturday morning, I'd worked myself into such a state of anxiety that I considered calling in sick, but I knew that would only delay the inevitable. We met at our usual spot, a small cafe downtown where we'd shared countless conversations over the years. Sarah was already seated when I arrived, looking perfectly put together in a cream-colored blouse and dark jeans. She smiled and waved me over like nothing had changed. Emma, perfect timing. I just ordered for both of us. I slid into the seat across from her, trying to read her expression. Thanks. What did you want to discuss about the wedding? Actually, she said, leaning forward slightly, I wanted to update you on something. Remember how I mentioned hiring a private investigator? My stomach dropped. Did you go through with it? Oh yes, very thorough gentleman, former police detective with an excellent reputation. She sipped her coffee calmly. He's been following Marcus for 3 days now. The cafe suddenly felt stifling. I could barely breathe. And? Well, the good news is that Marcus hasn't been meeting with any mysterious women this week. His schedule has been remarkably predictable. Work, gym, home. Very responsible behavior for a man about to be married. I felt a tiny spark of relief, quickly extinguished by her next words. Of course, the investigator also pulled Marcus's credit card records for the past 6 months. With a court order, it's amazing what information becomes available. My hands started trembling. I clasped them in my lap, hoping she wouldn't notice. Turns out Marcus has been quite busy. Hotels rooms charged to his personal card on days when he told me he was working late. Expensive dinners at restaurants we've never been to together. Flower deliveries to an address that isn't our home or his office. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder, setting it on the table between us. Care to guess whose address those flowers were delivered to? I stared at the folder, knowing my address was written somewhere inside it, along with God knows what other evidence of our affair. Sarah. The investigator also pulled phone records, she continued as if I hadn't spoken. Very interesting patterns of communication. Daily calls and texts between Marcus and a number that turned out to be registered to someone very close to me. She opened the folder and pulled out several printed pages, spreading them across the table like playing cards. Phone records with numbers highlighted in yellow, credit card statements with hotel charges circled in red, photos that must have been taken weeks ago, before we'd started being careful. One photo showed Marcus and me walking out of a hotel together. Another captured us kissing in the parking lot of a restaurant across town. A third showed me leaving his apartment building at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday when Sarah thought I was at a yoga class. 2 years, Sarah said quietly, her composure finally starting to crack. The records go back 2 years. 2 years of lies, Emma. 2 years of planning my future with a man who was sleeping with my best friend. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. The investigator estimates you've been together at least twice a week for the past 24 months. Hotel rooms, his apartment, your place, even a weekend getaway to that little bed and breakfast in wine country that I suggested for our honeymoon. That detail hit me like a physical blow. Marcus had taken me to the place Sarah had chosen for their honeymoon. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. Say something, Sarah demanded, her voice finally showing emotion. Explain this to me. Help me understand how my best friend could do this to me. I looked up at her face and saw years of friendship crumbling in real time. The Sarah I'd known since college was disappearing, replaced by someone harder, someone who'd been betrayed in the worst possible way. I'm sorry, I whispered. It was inadequate, pathetic, but it was all I had. You're sorry? Her voice rose slightly, drawing glances from other cafe patrons. That's it? 2 years of fucking my fiancé and you're sorry? Sarah, please, let me explain. Explain what? How you comforted me when I worried about Marcus being distant, knowing exactly why he was pulling away. How you helped me plan a wedding to a man you were sleeping with. How you stood there and smiled while I picked out my dress, knowing you were going to be wearing white lace under yours when you fucked him the night before my wedding. Each word was like a slap. I deserved every one of them. It wasn't supposed to happen, I said desperately. It just evolved. We tried to stop, but But what? But you couldn't keep your hands off each other. But my feelings didn't matter? But destroying my life was worth a few good orgasms? The people at nearby tables were definitely staring now. Sarah didn't seem to care. I never meant to hurt you, I said, tears starting to fall. You never meant to get caught, she corrected. There's a difference. She was right. If I'd truly cared about not hurting her, I would have ended things after the first time. Instead, I'd gotten addicted to the thrill, to feeling chosen over someone else, to having something that was supposed to be hers. What are you going to do? I asked. Sarah gathered up the photos and papers, sliding them back into the folder with methodical precision. First, I'm going to confront Marcus, show him all of this evidence and watch him try to lie his way out of it. Then I'm going to call off the wedding, obviously, cancel the venue, the flowers, the photographer, inform all our guests that the bride's maid of honor was fucking the groom. My face burned with shame. The thought of everyone knowing, of becoming the cautionary tale people would whisper about at future weddings, was almost unbearable. Then, Sarah continued, I'm going to sue you for alienation of affection. It's an old law, but it's still on the books in this state. You can be held financially responsible for destroying my relationship. I'd never heard of such a thing, but I didn't doubt she'd researched it thoroughly. And Marcus? I asked. Marcus is going to lose everything, she said with cold satisfaction. His business depends on contracts from my father's construction firm. Those contracts have morality clauses. When Daddy finds out that his future son-in-law was cheating with my maid of honor, Marcus will never work in this industry again. She stood up, slinging her purse over her shoulder. I loved you like a sister, she said quietly. I trusted you with everything. My fears, my dreams, my secrets. I would have done anything for you. Sarah, don't. She held up a hand to stop me. Don't apologize again. Don't make excuses. Just stay away from me, both of you. And if I ever see you at any event where I'm present, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. She left me sitting there surrounded by the wreckage of our friendship, drowning in guilt and shame. I called Marcus as soon as I got home, my hand shaking so badly I could barely dial. She has everything, I said when he answered. Photos, credit card records, phone logs, 2 years worth of evidence. Fuck. I heard him moving around, probably pacing. Okay, we need to get our stories straight. We say it was just a few times, not ongoing. We say it meant nothing, that we both regret it. Marcus, did you hear me? She has photos of us, hotel receipts. This isn't something we can minimize or explain away. Then what do you want me to do? He shouted. Confess everything and let her destroy both our lives? She's going to destroy them anyway, at least if we're honest. Honest about what? That we've been lying to her for 2 years? That we're both terrible people? How does that help anyone? I realized then that Marcus was never going to take responsibility for what we'd done. He was going to fight it, minimize it, blame circumstances and stress and anything except his own choices. I can't do this anymore, I said quietly. Can't do what? Lie, pretend, act like we're the victims here. I took a deep breath. I'm going to call Sarah and tell her everything. The truth about how it started, how long it's been going on, how sorry I am. Emma, no, that's exactly what she wants. If you confess everything, she'll use it against us in court. Let her. I deserve whatever consequences come from this. I don't, he said coldly. I won't let you destroy my life because you want to ease your conscience. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. If you contact Sarah or admit to anything, I will deny everything and claim you're obsessed with me. I have evidence that you initiated contact multiple times. Don't test me. I stared at the message in disbelief. Marcus was threatening me, trying to rewrite history to make me the pursuer and himself the victim. After 2 years of telling me he loved me, of saying I was the only person who understood him, he was ready to throw me under the bus to save himself. That's when I made my decision. I called Sarah's number, not expecting her to answer. She picked up on the third ring. What do you want, Emma? To tell you the truth, all of it, without excuses or minimization. I already know the truth. I have evidence. You have facts. You don't have the story behind them. You don't know how it started or why it continued or how many times I wanted to tell you but couldn't find the courage. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Fine, she said finally. You have one chance. Come to my apartment. Now. And Emma, if you lie to me about anything, if I find out later that you held back even the smallest detail, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. An hour later, I sat in Sarah's living room surrounded by the engagement photos I'd helped arrange, the wedding planning binders I'd contributed to, the evidence of a life I'd helped destroy. Sarah sat across from me, her face impassive, waiting. I told her everything. How Marcus had seemed vulnerable and conflicted during the birthday planning. How I'd offered support that turned into emotional intimacy that turned into physical betrayal. How we'd justified it as temporary, then as inevitable, then as something we couldn't control. I told her about the hotels, the lies we'd told to create time together, the close calls when we'd almost been caught. I told her about the guilt that ate at me daily, and the addiction to secrecy that kept me coming back for more. I told her about every conversation where Marcus had expressed doubts about their relationship. Every time he'd compared her unfavorably to me, every moment when he'd made me feel like I was special enough to risk everything for. And I told her about the recent weeks, when the weight of deception had become unbearable, but the fear of consequences had kept me silent. Through it all, Sarah just listened, her expression never changing. When I finished, she was quiet for several minutes. Do you love him? She asked finally. The question caught me off guard. I thought I did, but I think I was just addicted to being chosen over someone else, to feeling special and wanted and important. And you think he loves you? I thought about Marcus's threat, his willingness to destroy me to protect himself. No, I don't think he's capable of loving anyone more than he loves himself. Sarah nodded like this confirmed something she'd suspected. He called me 20 minutes ago, she said. Told me you've been obsessed with him, that you pursued him relentlessly until he gave in a few times out of pity. He claims you're trying to frame him because he rejected you. My stomach dropped. Marcus had followed through on his threat. That's not true, I said desperately. Sarah, I know I have no credibility left, but that's not how it happened. I know, she said simply. You do? Emma, I've known Marcus for 3 years. I've seen how he operates when he wants something. He's charming and persistent and very good at making people feel special. That story he told me, it doesn't match the man I know. She pulled out her phone and played a recording. Marcus's voice filled the room, explaining how I'd seduced him, how he'd tried to stay faithful, but eventually succumbed to my advances. I recorded the call, Sarah said, because I knew he would try to rewrite history, and because I wanted to hear how he'd throw you under the bus to save himself. Why are you telling me this? Because despite everything you've done, you're sitting here taking responsibility for your choices. He's trying to make himself the victim. She turned off the recording. You're both terrible people who betrayed someone who loved you, but at least you're being honest about it. Sarah stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street below. The wedding is off, obviously. I've already started making calls. The venue, the caterer, the photographer. Most deposits are non-refundable, so I'm out about $15,000. I winced. Sarah, I'll pay you back. Whatever it costs, With what money? She asked without turning around. You're a graphic designer who lives paycheck to paycheck. It would take you years to pay me back, and frankly, I don't want to be connected to you for that long. Then what can I do? How can I make this right? She turned back to face me, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I saw genuine sadness in her eyes instead of anger. You can disappear, she said quietly, from my life, from our mutual friends, from every space where I might accident. You can let me heal without constant reminders of how thoroughly you betrayed. And Marcus is going to learn what happens when you cross someone whose father owns half the commercial real estate in this city. His business contracts will be terminated by Monday. His professional reputation will be destroyed. And since our house is in my name, he'll be homeless by the end of the week. The vindictive satisfaction in her voice was scary, but I couldn't argue with it. Marcus had made his choices. Now he'd live with the consequences. I'll leave town, I said. Find work somewhere else. You'll never have to see me again. Sarah nodded. Good. Pack everything you can't live without. Leave everything else behind. Start over somewhere far away and try to become a better person than you are right now. I stood to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, I said. Marcus doesn't deserve you. He never did. You're going to find someone who loves you completely, who would never risk losing you for anyone or anything. And you're going to be happier than you ever would have been with him. I know, Sarah said. But it doesn't undo what you did to me. I know. I'm sorry isn't enough, but I need you to know that I am sorry and ashamed and completely aware that I destroyed the best friendship I've ever had for something that was never real. She didn't respond. I let myself out and never saw her again. I quit my job the next Monday and moved to Portland within 2 weeks. I left most of my furniture, took only clothes and personal items that fit in my car. Starting over at 31 was terrifying, but it felt like the only path toward redemption. For the first 6 months, I barely functioned. The guilt was overwhelming, the loneliness crushing. I'd wake up wanting to call Sarah about something funny I'd seen or heard, then remember that I'd destroyed that relationship forever. I started therapy, working through the choices that had led me to betray someone I loved. I took a job at a small design firm and kept my head down, building a new life one day at a time. I never heard from Marcus again. Through mutual acquaintances back home, I learned that Sarah's father had indeed blacklisted him from the construction industry. He'd moved back to his hometown and was working for his uncle's small contracting business. His reputation never recovered. 18 months after I left, I received a text from an unknown number. I'm getting married next month, to someone who deserves honesty. Thought you should know I found my happy ending. I knew it was Sarah. I wrote and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, I'm genuinely happy for you. You deserve every happiness. She never replied, but I didn't expect her to. 3 years later, I'm still in Portland. I have a good job, a small circle of friends who don't know my history, and a quiet life that feels honest in a way my old life never did. I date occasionally, but carefully. Trust is something I'm still learning to give and receive again. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never agreed to help plan Sarah's birthday party. If Marcus and I had never been thrown together, never developed that initial connection that grew into something destructive. But I know that line of thinking is useless. We made choices. I made choices. And those choices had consequences that rippled through multiple lives. I think about Sarah often, especially on what would have been her wedding day. I hope she's happy. I hope she found someone who loves her completely and honestly. I hope she has the life she planned, just with a different man standing beside her. As for me, I'm learning to live with the weight of what I did. Some days are harder than others. Some days, the guilt is so overwhelming I can barely function. But most days, I'm grateful for the chance to start over, to try to be better than I was. I'll never forgive myself for betraying Sarah, but I'm slowly learning to forgive myself for being human, for making catastrophic mistakes, for choosing poorly when I should have chosen better. It's not redemption. I'm not sure I deserve that, but it's something. And sometimes, that's enough. The hardest lesson I learned is that some betrayals can't be undone, only lived with. Some friendships can't be repaired, only mourned. And some mistakes are so fundamental that they change who you are forever. I'm not the same person who agreed to be Sarah's maid of honor while sleeping with her fiancé. I hope I'm better. I'm certainly more honest. more aware of the weight of my choices and their impact on others. And if I've learned anything from this experience, it's that secrets are corrosive. They eat away at everything good until only lies and justifications remain. Truth is painful, devastating, life-altering, but it's also the only foundation on which anything real can be built. I told the truth too late to save my friendship with Sarah, but it wasn't too late to save myself from becoming someone I couldn't live with. That has to be enough.